Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel Say What's Real TV. This review is for Tyler Perry's Sistas, Season 7, Episode 8, Pins and Needles. We open up the episode over at the law firm with Andy talking to Britton. He's someone she went to law school with, not sure if they were a thing or not. She hasn't spoken to him for a while apparently, but she's reaching out to him to get information on Gary. So he says that he had to go real deep to get information on him and even reach out to the DOJ. And I'm like, well, Gary has this open FBI investigation, but I guess that just goes to show how good Gary is because he's covering his tracks extremely well because the FBI has yet to do anything with Gary. So Britton warns her that Gary is a ticking time bomb in a pinstripe suit and she needs to get away from him while she still has a chance. So he let Andy know that if it was anything else she needed, she has his number, give him a call, don't be a stranger. She basically thanked him for his help and the information. And then he let her know that the information on Jordan panned out. He was innocent. He was just a victim of dirty politics. So once Britton leaves, Andy, she's sitting there reveling in the fact that Jordan is innocent when Fatima comes barging in. Automatically, Andy becomes dismissive and tells her, look, I'm busy. Fatima was insisting on letting Andy know who was there, and Andy didn't care. She was like, look, tell the person I'm busy and that they can wait. So while Andy is acting like she doesn't want to be bothered, we see Miss Marie Willis standing in the doorway letting Andy know she waits for no one. So we learn that she's a billionaire mogul and soon to be divorced, only wants to be called Marie. She's about her business, don't play no games apparently. So she's asking Andy, are you Andrea Barnes? Andy starts stumbling and fumbling over her words and Miss Marie was like, spit it out. I don't have time for all this low talking, mumbling stuff. Andy decided to get herself together and she said, I am she. So Miss Marie took it upon herself to dismiss Fatima and low-key told her to get the hell out by telling her to close the door behind her. Told Andy, sit down, child, because I don't need everybody in my business. So part of the reason she's there because she's basically trying to get a feel for Andy, see how she operates, see how she moves. So she tells Andy that she had breakfast with Jordan because she wanted to make sure he wasn't pissing away her donation campaign funds with his shenanigans. Just like Brenton earlier, she confirms that Jordan didn't do it. He is innocent of the charges he's being accused of. And she says she knows he's not a liar because she can spot one. She's been dealing with one for the last 15 years. So with that being said, she is trying to get a divorce from her husband and she wants to make sure that he doesn't get any of her money. So Andy automatically thinks she is a shoo-in for this divorce case, but Miss Marie lets her know, I'm not hiring you just yet. Even though you do come highly recommended, I'm from old school, I trust, but verify. Andy wanted to know, was there anything she can do on her end? And Miss Marie told her, just stay ready. Because as we all know, when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. She let Andy know that she has gotten to where she is today by staying 3 steps ahead and wanted to know, was she capable of doing the same thing if she is hired? So we go over there to the hospital where we see Sabrina talking to the nurse where she has started the process of freezing her eggs. Now she's feeling a bit overwhelmed because she's saying that it was a lot. Then she runs into Karen and they're both surprised to see each other. And she's like, what are you doing here? So Sabrina tells her that she started her process and how it was scary and draining for her and told her the different things that they had to do with her and asked Karen, like, what are you doing here? So initially Karen lied and said she was there for a checkup. And Sabrina was like, well, you just had a checkup. Is everything okay? So then Karen, she ended up telling her the truth and said she was there to get the DNA test for Zach, but basically for Fatima. And then she was like, well, it's really not even for them. I'm just tired of all the questions. So Sabrina asked her, did she want her to stay with her? And she told her, no, that was fine. Zach will be there. He's on his way. So being the friend that she is, Sabrina told her, if you need anything, just call me, and told her good luck. So we go back over there to the law firm and we see Fatima eavesdropping at Andy's door trying to listen when Hayden comes up wanting to know why he's getting patted down because I guess Miss Marie got her own security. And if you know, like I know, you need security up in that raggedy behind ghetto law firm because they off the chain up in there. So him and Fatima do their usual banter and he wants to know who Andy has up in her office. So she tells him who it is and he questions how was Andy able to pull her. And as they're doing all of that, Miss Marie is walking out the door, so Fatima was like, ask her for yourself. So he jumps in Miss Marie's face and she's like, who are you? So he starts telling her all this and that about himself, and she says, look, save it. I don't have time for the sales pitch. She looked at Andy and told her she'll be in touch, and she walked off, leaving Hayden feeling as small as an ant. So of course Fatima had to clown him and tell him to pick his face up off the floor. So he asks Andy, how does she scam and swindle a big fish like that? Andy tells him her work speaks for herself and she has good people to speak on her behalf. So Andy, we see her getting ready to leave, and Fatima was like, well, speaking of that, did you know Karen was going to get her DNA test? Basically, she was trying to ask to leave without asking. We know that Andy didn't know anything about it, and frankly, looked like she didn't even give a damn. She was trying to get to her man. She didn't ask questions about it, didn't care about it. All she did was told Fatima, go ahead and take the rest of the day off, but keep your phone turned on. You didn't have to tell Fatima twice. She ran in there, grabbed her belongings, and she was out of there like Speedy Gonzalez. So we get a scene with Gary and Tamara meeting up at the hotel, and the two of them are playing in each other's face, talking about, why are you calling me about your D? He says, because I know you want it. So they're going back and forth with all this sexual built-up tension they both have for each other. So they start kissing, and the next thing you know, they're rolling around in the sheets having an old hot steamy session. Without condoms, might I add. While all this is going on, they pan to the nightstand where we see this pen flashing red, recording the whole thing. So after they handled their little business, Gary went and put his clothes on and comes back out saying, oh, so that's what you needed in your life. She says, it was all right. So the weird part about this whole thing is the pen is on the nightstand next to Gary's cell phone, and his phone rings, so he goes to pick the phone up, and I'm sure he's smart enough to see that the pen was right there. It was just blinking red, anybody could have seen it. So Gary tells her don't say anything to Hayden and act like this never happened, and she wants Gary to stop bad-mouthing her in front of him. So Gary told her, I'll text you the horse emoji when I want you. That doggone Gary is too cocky for me, pun intended. According to Danny, he is actually hung just like one. So after Gary leaves, Tamara, she picks the pen up off the nightstand and she's holding it with this wicked look on her face like, I got you, B. And I'm like, Tamara, what are you going to do with this pen? Are you getting ready to blackmail Gary, or are you going to actually take the evidence and show it to Hayden? Because then it implicates you in cheating on him. So I'm confused. So we see Danny in therapy with Krisha, basically telling her life is in shambles, and it's all because Tony has his kids indefinitely. So the two of them talk about whether or not Danny wants kids or not. We have heard Danny say she doesn't want any kids. So after Krisha had Danny do this exercise, I think Danny's biggest fear is the kids trying to get their mom back together with their dad. So we go over there to the hospital where we see Karen waiting, and Zach, he runs in huffing and puffing talking about, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. So I was waiting for Zach to say, oh, I had to find a babysitter for Michael, but we don't even hear about Michael, so we don't even know who's keeping Michael, because let Fatima tell it, last episode, which was really last night, they had Michael in the house and he was asleep. So I want to know who's keeping Michael. See, that's what I'm talking about. They bring stuff up in certain episodes and it doesn't continue on to the next episode. We didn't physically need to see Michael, but they could have at least put it in the dialogue where he was at and what was going on. But I digress. So Zach, he comes in with this big bag of food, so he gives it to Karen. She said they were going to be there for a while, so he wanted to make sure that she was comfortable and wanted to also thank her for doing this test. So Karen, she filled out the paperwork for Zach and handed it to him, tell him all he needs to do is sign. And, you know, they have a little friendly kiki moment like, oh, don't act like you know me. And, you know, she was like, I only did it because I didn't know how long you were going to be, but they may have more questions in the back. So they just chopping it up, just talking, and he brings up the baby being Zach Jr. and talking about might have a light bulb head like his, and she didn't say anything about the Zach Jr. part. It was like they had already had that discussion off camera because we didn't see it, right? So they're all caught up in the moment. They feeling good. They laughing, kikiing down. He rubbing all on her belly. They talking about who the baby gonna look like. All of a sudden, who walks in? Fatima. The look on Zach's face, you would have thought that he saw a ghost. All that skinning and grinning and kalacky-lacking came to a complete halt. You hear me? Fatima, she comes in, what's up, babe? And all the smiles seem to disappear from everybody's faces. And, you know, it's like, why y'all not still rubbing the bellies and, you know, chucking it up? Like, if it's not inappropriate, keep doing what you were doing. So Karen says, Zach, I thought I made it clear that I wanted it to be just me and you. So Fatima interjects and says she wanted to support him because she knows how he is about needles. Karen was like, I said what I said. Fatima said, look, I changed my mind. Look, I don't want no smoke. I'm just going to stay out the way. So they get ready to go back and forth, it seems. But then Zach, he interrupts and says, well, Karen, look, we're here now. I'm sorry Fatima popped up. So Fatima was like, popped up? Oh, so what, you don't want me here? And Zach was like, I didn't say that. So now the two of them are going back and forth and it's just getting kind of out of hand. So he was like, look, it's fine. It's fine. We'll just talk about this later. And Fatima assured him, yes, they would be. So the nurse, she comes out and grabbed the clipboards and she's like, oh, Zach Karen, Zarin, that would be a cute boy name. Zach sitting over there sweating bullets talking about, don't do that. Zach already know. Fatima sitting over there hotter than fish grease as it is. No, ma'am, don't play. So the nurse, she takes Zach to the back and Fatima goes with him and they get in the back and they're waiting and Zach is nervous and all of that. And they have a brief conversation where Fatima apologizes for not telling him she was coming and they work it on out and he tells her he's glad that she came. But of course, behind closed doors. But that's neither here nor there. So the nurse finally comes in and takes Zach's blood. And of course, he acted a whole donkey, but it got done. So we go over there to Jordan's house and Andy goes over there and he's sitting on the sofa. So she goes and jumps all over and kissing all over him. He's like, well, what's going on? Did I do something? And she thanks him for the referral for Miss Marie. And he says, well, I would have told you about it, but I didn't want you hanging up in my face again. So she tells him that she apologizes and that Miss Marie backed him up and some other resources that was digging gave her some information. I'm like, girl, why would you tell him all of that? Like, you cannot be a fierce attorney and tell all what you know. You got to keep something under the belt. So now Jordan, he's feeling some kind of way and tells Andy that it feels like she trusts others' word over his word. So then Jordan says, look, I understand that you were taken aback by the news, but I expected my words to hold a little more weight. Now, let me just say this. Now, Jordan, you've only been dating her 3 to 4 months. She really don't know you like that. So please miss me with all that. She's supposed to automatically believe that you are innocent. No, sir. It does not work like that. In real life, we got situations going on where people are getting fooled on a daily basis with men living double lives and the women don't have a clue who they are really dealing with. We got Risa Tisa dealing with Legion. We got Nasty Nesto with Shirley. Come on now. And these people actually married the men. So no, Jordan, nobody's going to automatically believe that you are innocent. But I do think that Andy could have handled this situation much better than she did. She was quite rude with it and immature. And I do believe that Jordan deserved a mature conversation about what was happening. But no, sir, you don't get an automatic pass, in my opinion. But Andy does tell him that she should have believed him from the start because he hasn't given her a reason not to trust him. So she apologizes to him again and tells him that she's still learning because this is her first relationship where she's experiencing someone that she can trust. So he pretty much accepts her apology and tells her he wants them to be a unit, and she says, I'm by your side. So the two of them basically, they make up, and he says that he has to go to a lot of meetings, and he leaves Andy in the house, and she tells him she'll be there when he gets back. So after Jordan leaves, Andy goes through the folder that Brenton gave her on Gary. So we go over there to Gary's office when Hayden comes in, and Gary is giving major attitude, but Hayden didn't give a damn. He's still trying to talk to him like, look, I've been trying to call you all day, trying to laugh, give him dap, blah, blah, blah. So he asked him about the hickey that was on his neck, asking him, was he with a vampire? So Gary's trying to play it off, talking some, oh, you know how it is. You know how it is when your girl get a little excited. So Hayden over there dapping him up, talking about, yeah, that's my guy, because Tamara, she stay leaving marks on me. And Gary looking crazy because he knows that Tamara was the one left it on his grimy behind. So Gary asked him, what was so important that you've been calling me all day? So he was like, I need your help with work. So it's like they have this same conversation every week. I don't get it. So he tells him how Andy landed the big client, Miss Marie Willis. And of course, Gary knows her. Now, can someone tell me, how is it that Gary, the one that has so much criminal activity around him, is connected with all these powerful people in the city? Last season, it was the mayor who he can just call up at the drop of a dime and get something taken care of. He knew the owner of the website that Andy was on. He was able to call somebody to get information on the long shot. Now, all of a sudden, he knows this billionaire mogul, Miss Willis. Come on now. So at first, Hayden was teasing him, thinking he was hunching Miss Willis and saying, like, look, I would do the same thing. So Gary was like, no. He claims that she invested some money into him when he first started out, and they've just remained cordial. Of course, now Gary wants to go talk to Miss Marie to give her the rundown on Andy. So then we see Andy calling Fatima to tell her she's getting ready to go meet Gary at the penthouse to confront him about paying somebody to lie on Jordan. So Fatima was asking her, you're not going over there alone, right? So of course she's oblivious, thinking nothing's going to happen. And Fatima had to reel her back in like, girl, that's dumb. I'm going to go home, get my sneakers and my blade, and come back with some weapons, and I'll meet you over there. So we go over there to the salon, and Trey comes in looking for Karen and then wanting to know from Pam, was he pushing up on Karen too hard? So she basically told him, cut the crap, Trey. I know what you really want. And he was like, well, what might that be? She said, you want what Lucky wanted in Poetic Justice.
You want to smell my punani?
Trey couldn't do nothing but laugh and just walked out. So then when he leaves, she gets a phone call, and this Aaron basically was calling to see how Karen was doing through Pam. And she lets him know that she's okay, she's well taken care of. And before they hang up, she asks him about investing in her products. So we go over there to Sabrina's house. Danny's over there, and Sabrina's handing her some wine, and she's explaining to her what happened over at the hospital, telling her how she ran into Karen. So Danny was like, well, what was she doing there? And Sabrina was like, taking a DNA test. So Danny was like, finally, because she's tired of all the baby mama drama stuff, and was like, well, Karen could have told them. But I'm like, Danny, you're kind of secretive yourself, so, I mean, she really didn't have to tell you anything. So Sabrina was like, well, maybe we're all just growing apart, which could be true. So Danny, she doesn't seem to believe that. So Sabrina asked her if she's still in therapy because she's watching her guzzle down this wine, and it's still kind of early in the day to be drinking. And Danny took offense and was like, well, you would be drinking with me if you wasn't trying to deep freeze your eggs. So she goes ahead and tells her about therapy, about being a stepmom, how she feels about Tony. They go to talking about how good the sex is for both of their men. And then Sabrina feels like they should recreate going on this double date. And I'm not understanding why Sabrina has not broken up with Rich yet. So we see Gary getting off the elevator over there at the penthouse telling Andy, oh, you couldn't stay away from me, could you? Then Fatima comes around the corner with her big red bag full of weapons, and immediately Gary was like, oh, dear God. So he wants to know what Fatima is doing there, and she tells him, F around and find out. So the two of them go back and forth with all that slick talk that they do about he doesn't want her anymore. She's just leftovers. She's telling him that he's mad because Jordan is bigger than him. She's always talking about his manhood and who's bigger and this and that. I don't understand that. But at any rate, she tells him she has the proof that he set Jordan up. He says that the story cannot be traced back to him. So then she threatens him about going to the FBI about some more information she has, and says that she'll ruin his life and hers before she lets Gary ruin Jordan's life. She also tells him to leave Penelope alone, and Gary says that is my business. So Andy tells him to get out of my house, and Gary says this is my house and don't you ever forget it. So I'm like, Andy, did you put the penthouse in your name or not? So then Fatima, she had to jump in, grabbing her bag, and he just walked off with a smug face, laughing at him, going down the elevator like if only you knew. So we go back over there to the hospital where Karen is getting ready to start the procedure. The doctor is trying to make sure she's comfortable, but then she shows her this long behind needle that she's going to use, but tell her just stay calm, it'll be over quickly. So the doctor then turns the monitor towards Karen, and they act like they can't see the two babies that's on the screen, but we can see the two babies, right? So they're listening to the heartbeat, and Karen is feeling a little emotional, looking like, aw. And then she was like, well, can you tell the gender? And she was like, oh, sure. So she went to try to find what the sex of the baby is. So she turns the monitor back towards her, and all of a sudden she gives this look like, oh my God. And Karen was like, well, what's going on? Is everything all right? And she was like, oh, it's fine. And Karen was like, well, you need to be a little more convincing than that. Then the doctor started asking questions about when was your first ultrasound and telling Karen she doesn't want to alarm her. And Karen was like, well, you are. So then she turns the monitor back towards Karen and starts explaining what she is seeing. So Karen was like, doctor, what are you saying? She says, I'm saying you're having twins. And Karen could not believe it. She was like, oh, hell no. Karen wanted to know why it wasn't detected sooner. And the doctor basically was just like, congratulations, twins are a blessing. And then she tells her the twins are in 2 sacks and both will need to be tested. And that's where the episode ends. What do you guys think Tamara would do with the evidence she has on her recording pen? And when do you think Hayden will find out the truth? So this week's episode was written by Lucien Christian Adderley and Richard Byrd Wilson. Drop down in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts were. As always, you guys, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.